Welcome to Bold Talk series where innovation, creativity comes together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and I'm today with Evan Wong, co-founder and CEO of Checkbox. Evan, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talks. How are you?
Epi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm doing great. Excited to be on the Bold Talk.
Fantastic. Evan, let's start first, like founding your first company. I heard you started at 17. And later built Checkbox into a venture-backed enterprise software company. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, when I was 17, I stumbled upon entrepreneurship. Some people, when they're growing up, they know what they want to do. I didn't. I started a company called Hero Education. It was an education business, very local, out of Australia. Probably tell from the accent by now. But I started Hero and I fell in love with the creativity, the autonomy, just the ability to create something out of nothing and impact real life people in the real world. And that's the journey that I started when I was 17, just right out of high school. I built that business for many, many years, impacted thousands of people. And when I graduated from law school, so out of college, I just couldn't see myself working for a large organization. So I did it again. So right out of law school, I started Checkbox, which is now, as you say, a global enterprise software company. And it's moved my life to the US. I live in New York now and speaking to you from here.
Nice, man. That's a journey, right? I had the same experience myself, like when I first had my first corporate job. And after that, I knew that this is not for me. And I truly just went on and like entrepreneurship ever since. And I just loved it. I mean, the journey is always, like sometimes you know where you're going, but it's like that later on you start growing up and look at you and now you're building an incredible, amazing company, Checkbox. Now tell us a little bit more about your Checkbox and what are you doing? It's an illegal business, right? And so,
Yeah. So we're a legal AI business. So what we do is we work with in-house legal teams to help them become more efficient in the way they work with their business. So when you think about a legal department in, let's say, a Pepsi or a Disney, right? Like all of the rest of the business, whether it's finance or marketing or sales, at some point needs legal help. And today, a lot of what they do is go through sending an email or sending a Teams or Slack message. And it's very, very manual. It's not sort of organized in any way, and there's no reporting that's available for the legal department. So it's absolute chaos. Like imagine a support team, like a customer support team that doesn't have a system to help bring in the inbound, tickets, right? Whether it's Intercom or Zendesk. Imagine a support team without that. Or imagine a sales team without Salesforce or an IT team without ServiceNow, right? Legal today, they're a support function for the rest of the business, but they have no system in place. So it's chaos coming in. What we do at Checkbox is we've built the legal front door. So how does work come into the legal department? How does it get routed to the right people, the right tools? And then, of course, we have a lot of AI that even resolves a lot of the legal requests right at the start so that the lawyers can focus on the most important critical things and don't get bogged down by all the noise that's required.
amazing. And that is for the company inside the company or for the company working with other companies legal?
It's within the company. Yeah.
Within,
So it's like if you sell something, you need to get your contract reviewed. If you want to launch a marketing campaign, you need to have the marketing copy and the maybe the imagery reviewed by legal to make sure it doesn't breach, like some regulatory rules. And so whenever anyone in the business needs legal help, they come through Checkbox. And that means much faster turnaround times for the business and then more time for the legal team, which in today's world, Epi, like companies and teams have to scale so much further with less headcount. There is just pressure to use more AI and more technology to actually increase productivity per headcount. And so that's what we're really doing for the legal department, whilst giving faster turnaround times for the business to move quicker, to close the deal quicker, to launch the marketing campaign quicker, to resolve issues that might have a very tight deadline in a reasonable time frame.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, the legal it's one industry that is, it doesn't really move as fast as the other industries, and you're at the industry that's completely ripe for a disruption and make it efficient. I know, like when I open the companies, like in US or in Singapore, it's it's becoming way easier now because now you have the systems where you just go in, you apply for it, and it goes to the legal, all that. But for corporations like this at the scale, I'm sure it requires a lot more understanding in terms of the corporate. So how do you get to understand these needs that the corporations internally? Do you have a co-founder, or is it someone in your team that in a product that understands it better? Or
So first of all, understanding the customer is probably one of the number one most important things about building a company. So what you want is the entire company to truly understand the customer, and definitely as a founder to understand the customer. How do we get to this point? Well, it's years and years of listening and asking and being curious and knowing that what you know today may not be true in 3 to 6 to 12 months time, and you have to constantly be like re-engaging with your customer to understand what's the most important thing to them. So for me, I came out of a law degree, so I have some base understanding of legal, but I never worked at a legal department, right? I've been building companies my whole life. So for me, it's about really just spending time, having conversations, not necessarily selling, but trying to understand the customer. Now that we're a much bigger company, we're about 100 people now in the organization. We have all of our people listen to sales calls, join customer calls, go on site during implementation to even see how implementation fault like plays out. And this is not just your go-to-market people. This might be your product people. This might be your engineers. Like really, it's about infusing customer and the voice of the market into the organization, so you know that you're building the right thing ultimately for the customer.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, part of the listening, it's like it can take years and years and still haven't really figured out right. Now,
Mm.
when you figure out, what has been one of the hardest personal decisions you have had to make in order to keep moving the checkbox forward?
Not business, you said personal. Like
Yeah,
me,
personal. Yeah,
personal. Man, I
or business too. Either or, it could be either or.
I think one of the okay, I'll start with business and I'll get to personal. One of the hardest business decisions, and this is one that I think a lot of founders tend to struggle with as they start, and I did too, is often you see so much opportunity in the technology that you build that you think you can solve like any problem for any person, and your scope of what is a customer is very, very big. Right? Like when you speak to early founders and you say, "Oh, who do you sell? Who do you build for? Who is your customer?" A lot of the times they fall into the trap of, "Oh, well, this could work for anyone," or "Oh, it's all small businesses. All small businesses. Did you know that 95% of businesses are small? Like it's huge." But that actually shows that you haven't spent enough time really refining who you're building for. And so for us, we started the same. We had this big vision of solving every problem. Our original sort of vision for Checkbox was empower anyone to build software. Okay. It was basically vibe coding before AI. Like, how do we take the average non technical user and give them the ability to build software using drag and drop? And we thought, wow, this could solve finance and legal and HR and really any problem. And what we learned over time was actually we need focus. Yes, our technology could solve thousands of problems, but you're not going to build a company very successfully if you're going to try to solve the problem of, dozens of different personas that are very, very different. So one of the hardest business decisions I think that we had to make was to actually say no to all of the opportunity that was coming in from all these different parts of the enterprise and just focus on one, to actually say, you know what, even though there isn't a huge opportunity, we're just going to narrow our ICP, our ideal customer profile, to in-house legal teams. So that was a pretty hard decision to make. Like in retrospect, everyone says, "Oh, that was very smart," of course. But in the moment, when you're still early on, you don't have much revenue, every
Yeah,
lead counts, like being
get
able to
to
say
quote the
no.
cash flow and all that, right? So
Yeah, it's tough. It was probably one of the harder decisions. And, people always gave me this advice in the early days. And, you listen to it and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But in practice, it is so hard. And I'm sure people who might be listening today might be in the same situation. Like, oh, that makes sense. I should try and do that. But when you're in the thick of it and there is money coming through the door, it's hard to say no to that when you're just starting out. But over time, it gets easier, right? Like the pattern recognition, the leverage that you get from serving one single customer, building for the one customer, just makes you so much sharper.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
On the on the
amazing. Go ahead.
on the on the personal side, I think the entire thing has been a sacrifice. Like I don't think people realize how much founders have to sacrifice to build a company. Epi, one of the things I say to even our people is when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to everything else, right? And so that really helps with thinking about prioritization and where you spend time. And when you go and say yes to building a company, you're really signing away the next 5 to 10 to maybe 15 years of your life. And it is something that like will not be successful unless you pour everything you have into it and be completely obsessed with it. And lucky for me, I love company building. I love every day I wake up and like I jump out of bed, I'm ready to build. And when I go to bed, I don't want to sleep because I can't wait to wake up the next morning to continue building. I literally have in my calendar blocked out time and it says like, hey, you need to sleep in order to keep building this company. So go to sleep.
How many
But
hours do you sleep, Evan?
it's changed a lot. Honestly, there was a period of time when I was in Sydney building into the US, and the average amount I would get would be about 4 hours. And that was like every single day. And it wasn't even 4 hours consistently. It was broken up into like polyphasic sleeping because so I would sleep 1 hour, wake up, take a meeting in the US, sleep for half an hour, wake up, take another 1 hour in the US, wake up. And then I would do a full day in Sydney with the team in the office. And people don't see that side of company building. I mean, thankfully, I don't do that now today, but like that's what it took. And it took about a year of doing that, which is just crazy to think that someone can operate like that. But when you're building a company, there's just this thirst to like,
Yeah,
to build and it just gets you through. Probably not too dissimilar to like new parents with babies. Like their sleep schedule's probably out the window, but they love the baby so much. They obviously do crazy things and your body just makes its way through it. Yes, you're tired, but you love what you're doing. And it's kind of like that. But today I try to sleep about 7 hours
that's good.
now. Yeah. So I'm trying to level back out and be normal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Also, now in US time, and you have your customers in US, I assume mostly, and that's one of the reasons why now it's a more like a more balance, right? And but yeah, I mean, these are the sacrifices, right? And so a lot of people they don't see that. They don't see that grind that you have to go through it. Now, Evan, when you're building teams, what qualities do you look for that can usually not be taught?
Really good question because, like you said, like many things can be taught. And so, what you want to be qualifying for are the things that cannot be. And I'd say there's a few things, maybe like three things that come to mind. The first is, are they a first principles thinker? This is really important for when you're still scaling, like you're a startup and you're scaling up. If you're a really big organization, you don't necessarily need everyone to be a first principles thinker. And what I mean by first principles, I mean there are people who execute a certain way, make decisions a certain way because it's worked for them at a previous experience, or someone has told them this is the way to do it. And so they sort of blindly apply that playbook or that technique in a new environment. And that works when you're a scaled up business and, you start to look the same. So for example, if you were to, I don't know, start a fish and chip shop, let's just go right down to the S&B level, you know exactly what you have to buy in terms of equipment and the type of marketing that you have to do. Like it's a pretty known formula, loosely, to replicate and build another fish and chip shop. But when you're building a startup, so much is uniquely unique. That being the time in the market, the product that you're building. Like if it's a true startup, you're probably building something that is defining a category or reinventing a category. So your product is very unique. Your customer base might be unique. Your segments, your people, the team you have around you. Like there's so many unique elements that means that you can't just blindly apply like something from the past. That's a data point, but it can't be something you blindly apply. So you need first principle thinkers, meaning if I take the most fundamental blocks of the situation and I try to figure it out from the ground up, like what is the best solution here? And those types of people and the way they think is actually quite different. So I look for first principles thinkers, really smart people that can think in that way. Also people that are really strong learners, right? Like having the continuous learning mentality, but us actually people who are adaptable. Because again, like in startup, you might start with an idea and an assumption, and you're making a ton of assumptions. And the world and the business changes so quickly that you need to have an ability to like continuously consume new information and learn new things on a weekly, if not a daily basis. And Epi, today, like with how fast AI and technology is transforming,
Yeah.
I think this is for everyone. Like, regardless of whether you're in startup or not, you have to be so much faster at learning and being
and
adaptable and
and
changing.
that because you said that you there's so much assumption, right?
Yes,
And if you're not willing to have that critical thinking in terms of challenging yourself, like, am I assuming, or even creating like a really specific agent to challenge that assumption for you, it's super important.
exactly. Absolutely. So true.
This is this is this is so important, and glad that you brought this this conversation because in the end, a lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurs, they go through this journey. There's some things that they're not really clear in terms of which direction they should take. And this is what Bold Talks is about. It's basically getting the insights from people who are in it, the operators like you and many others. So this is a short format conversation, Evan. I'd like to ask you one more question before we wrap up, and that is like the word bold. What does that mean to you personally?
It's interesting that you're called Bold Talks. One of our values is be bold, suck less. That's actually one of the checkbox values. So we use the word bold as well. Bold is about taking calculated risks that put you out of your comfort zone, but ultimately gives you like a step function, like needle moving outcome, right? Like that's what bold is having the courage internally to do things that like ultimately have a big payoff, but may not be comfortable for you initially. And look, there is not a single entrepreneur or any great thing that has happened probably in this world without someone at least being bold. So have the courage, failure is part of the journey. And I think bold is, such a key part of, achieving great things.
Amazing. Evan, great having you. Thank you for joining this Bold Talk series. Until next time, take care, be great, and be bold always. Bye bye.
Thank you, Epi. Bye-bye.